some longer pauses. I don't know how long this is going to take. It could take 20 minutes, could take 2 hours. So if I were you, I'd brace yourself. And put on your listening hats and listen closely. First and foremost, for the purpose of legality reasons, I want to say that the following may or may not be true. From the time I was 12, maybe 13 years old, I always had an interest in secrecy. Now, obviously, that statement is very broad. Sort of secrecy, telling secrets from your parents, keeping secrets from your friends. And it's intentionally broad in the sense that I found it really cool. Now, keep in mind, I'm a pre-adolescent, right? So I just found it really cool that people and groups can operate in the shadows. Something could happen on one side of the world, and a certain group who will never get credit for it or be linked to it in any way could be responsible for that event. And no one will ever know. And I learned at a very young age, probably around 12 or 13, that that is how the world operates. And I thought that was really awesome. So growing up through my teenage years, I expressed an interest in... Oh, you got static going on? Of course you do. Should be good. So growing up, I expressed an interest to those around me, friends, family, teachers, that that was what I wanted my career to be. And I was met with a lot of unclear answers, almost answers of confusion, if you would, that such a career doesn't necessarily exist. Well, then the internet was invented. And I figured, well, if no one is going to tell me how to do what I want to do, I'm just going to teach it to myself. So I started teaching it to myself, and when I was old enough to ask the right people involved and reach out to the right people that would be involved in such an operation, I started getting calls. And those calls led to interviews. Those interviews led to apprenticeships. And those apprenticeships led to tryouts. There's only one person in the world other than me that knew what I was doing, where I was going. That person will keep that a secret till his dying day. Within my inner circle, I should say, the people that were, with me at these endeavors, they obviously knew I was there because they were there. That's what I wanted. I wanted that to be my life. I wanted that to be my career. I wanted that to be my future, and I wanted to affect change worldwide and be able to do it in such a manner that which no one knew that I was doing it, because I didn't want someone to prevent me from doing it again and again. I wanted to be able to continue to affect change, good change, honest change. Criminal organizations, drug manufacturing, drug trafficking. Back then we didn't know a whole lot about human trafficking, but we did know a lot about terrorism and where terrorism operated within the country and abroad. I wanted to be the head. I wanted to be the guy. I wanted to be the apex of that organization that would somehow affect change in a good way. Growing up, I saw what the world was turning into. The first war in Iraq, Desert Storm. Assassination attempt of presidents. I watched all those documentaries just like you guys did. And somewhere along the line, humanity had gotten off track, and I couldn't quite understand why. It wasn't obvious as to why that was happening. So I wanted to be a part of something that would not only figure out why that was happening, but prevent it from happening, because racism was peaking. We would just throw out the word gay and fag and dyke like it was just everyday language. It's part of your vocabulary. If you didn't like a person for any reason, you would just say, oh, well, they're gay. Like it's a negative word. The whole world, in my estimation, was just, I wanted to do something with my life that affected enormous change on a large scale platform. So my early years of high school, I accepted an invitation to the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States. I didn't really know much about the CIA. But what I did know, it was such an organization that matched what I was looking for. And short of going abroad and finding something else or somewhere else, I figured we'd give this a try. So 2 summers, while I was in high school, I had attended a apprentice and training program for new recruits to the Central Intelligence Agency. Apparently back then, and I don't know if they still do it the same way now, but people that were being recruited to such an agency were monitored prior to being actually invited to Langley, into the recruitment base, and to, all these different sites that they had. Many people think, well, if you're going to be recruited to the CIA, then you are going to go straight to Langley and start working there. It's not how it works, especially if you're at a young age. So off I went. I believe it was a 6-week program over the summer. The first summer, which I guess would have been my junior year of high school, it was more or less a hey guys, if you want me to speak any quicker, or if you want me to talk about something different, just leave. Because this is how it's going to go. So if you don't like it, you could wait for the replay and you can watch it on 2x speed or do whatever you want to do. But this is my story and this is how I'm telling it. So if you don't like it, you could save yourself time from typing out a comment in the chat over here and just go fuck yourself. Okay? All right. Great. The first year was more of a getting used to it year. And when I say it, I don't necessarily mean me or the recruits getting used to the area or the program. It was them getting used to us. And we didn't know that, because keep in mind, we're 16, 17-year-old kids. What we didn't know at the time was that we were being evaluated well before we stepped onto recruitment camp to even determine if we belonged there. It was an enormous static again. Should be good now, locals. Why are people telling me to mute the chat? Okay. Well, before we even stepped foot on the recruitment areas, we were being watched, evaluated, graded. And the entire first year, that 6 weeks was more or less a blur. I remember testing, more mind testing, more awareness testing, intelligence testing, if you would. Now, back around this time, I was good in high school. I was towards the top of my class. Can't remember exactly where, but you would think that because someone is, smart grades wise, that would translate into something that an agency like the CIA would be looking for. And no. So the type of testing that, would be done in these recruitment areas were testing that you didn't even necessarily know was happening. Body language testing, body temperature testing, pulse rate, mind activity, situational reactions to different situations. So then it ended. And I kind of walked out of there thinking, what the hell was that? Like what? How did I do? I don't even know. Like, is it this a thing? I was more intrigued than I had ever been, even growing up as a kid. So I didn't know what was going to happen. Didn't hear anything for a long time afterward until I was invited back. Second year. Second summer. I think this one might have been a little longer. I don't necessarily remember, but apparently, after arriving to that second year session, I did pretty well the first year. And we didn't know about that until the second year. The second year is when everything changed. The second year was not like the first. The first year was more of what I would like to describe as a screening process to see if we even belonged there, to see if we had anything at all like they were looking for. The second year, we didn't see anyone that was first year recruits. We were only put with second year recruits. And we were bunked with them. 2 a bunk. And when I say bunk, that's what we called it, but it was really a room with 2 beds on opposite sides of the room. One doorway to exit, window that you could see out of, but not into. Much like a dormitory for a college. The second year, which I believe was 8 or 9 weeks, we were roomed with people who scored similarly in the previous year of evaluation, so that their thought and philosophy was that if we put these minds together, they may make each other better, if that makes sense. They didn't want to waste a great mind on, a not so developed mind that may not come to anything anyway. So they met the threshold of being brought back for the second year, but they didn't necessarily think that person might go anywhere. They didn't want to put someone at the top of the class with someone at the below because they didn't think that that was going to make any sort of significant, rise in ability. So I was roomed with an individual who, I don't say any of this in a bragatory sense because I don't necessarily like this portion of my life. But apparently, in the first year, I scored in the top of the recruit class for whatever criteria they were looking for. They never really told us what the criteria was. That's another thing. It's not like we got a score report and said, oh, well, in this area you did well, in this area you did well, in this area you did okay, in this area you did. It's nothing like that. We were just told how we ranked based on their evaluation, and we were never given what the evaluation criteria was. It's very, very, very strange. I know, but it was. It's how they operate, or how they operated. Apparently, I was evaluated at the top of that class. Apparently, the person that I was roomed with was second in that class. And that's what they did. And they would pair up 3 with 4 or 3 with 5, 4 with 6, such. But 1 and 2 were together. I remember jokingly, because we all knew each other's ranks. That was not something that was kept secret. Jokingly, the other recruits would call me Valley. Not like, peaks and valley, but Valley as in valedictorian, because apparently I was supposed to be, I don't know, apparently I was looked up to. I'm a kid, guys. I'm, 16, 17 years old. There was no designation of a valedictorian or a salutatorian or anything like that. It was just kind of like nicknames for each other, so to speak. My roommate was it's called number 2. It's that kind of thing. I'm told that the term Mr. Irrelevant that they use in the NFL and I know this, obviously it's front of conversation now because Brock Purdy leading 49ers to be a juggernaut that's at front of everybody's mind, and he was drafted last in the NFL draft, and they call that person who gets drafted last in the NFL draft Mr. Irrelevant. So the last rank in our recruitment class, we called him irrelevant. He didn't like that too much, but he got used to it. That second year was different. The second year we trained much differently. They were now trying to evaluate and determine, number 1, if we were going to be hired, and number 2, what area we would be in if we were hired. Is it a desk job? Is it an agent in the field? Is it, cyber? Is it computer? What is it? So static's back. Okay. Are we there? Locals? the training got more intense as 1 week felt like a month. 1 month felt like a year. And we were there a solid 8 or 9 weeks, from what I remember. Became very close to my roommate. Very close. Best friends wouldn't even be, would be the largest understatement anyone could ever make when referring to a relationship with, between two friends. The trust in one another, the confiding in one another, the level that we were both on intellectually, and what we wanted out of the rest of our life and where that life would lead to. We were so close. To the point where even after this next session was over, we stayed very close afterwards. Him coming to Pennsylvania, me going to Connecticut several times. It was towards the last week, maybe the last 2 weeks of this second session, which would have been the summer of my soon-to-be senior year. I was a junior at this point, going into my senior year, and the second session was over the summer. So it's towards the end of that summer, probably late July, maybe early August-ish, plus or minus. I don't remember exactly, but myself and two, let me digress. The complex that we were at in the second year was much more like a military training camp, except it wasn't military, but it resembled what a military training camp would look like. There would be a mess hall, so to speak. This campus was a lot closer to the actual CIA campus in Langley. It's funny, they never actually gave us exact directions or coordinates of where this place was. We were always taken there from the airport, taken there, and we were not able to know exactly where we were, but it was understood that we were much closer to Langley than we were the year prior. So when we were in a recreational setting, such as lunch, dinner, yard, we would be able to bump elbows with some of the agents who were actually active CIA. Many of the recruits who were in our class were related to current agents, and they were trying to come up through the ranks, probably being pushed there by their parents or grandfathered in, or a legacy, so to speak. Yeah, it was the farm. You guys are smart. I wasn't going to say that, but you guys are on it over here, so I might as well just admit to it since I'm into everything else tonight. The time that we had outside of classes was being able to converse freely with other people who represented themselves as active agents, either in the field or on the desk. And I think what they tried to do was push the people who they thought were going to be in the field towards those people, and thought were going to be on a desk towards those people. I think they tried to put us down a path that way, so we would see them in crossing. They would try to strike up a conversation. They knew who we were. I digress again here a little bit because I forgot to mention something. We didn't go by our names, our actual names. That was a no-no. The actual names on our birth certificates were not ever known by anyone else in the complex. So not the recruitment class, not the agents who we would brush elbows with. It's my understanding that the instructors and the staff knew our names, but we were never referred to those names, ever. We were given aliases. Mine was Mark. My roommate was Wheeler. Quickly stopped calling him Wheeler because everyone else called him Two. So we just went with Two. Regardless, towards the last couple weeks of this second recruitment or training, whatever you want to call it, we, as a group, started hearing something. And it made no sense. It was, try to give you an example of how I felt and how a lot of us felt in hearing such a thing. It was almost like hearing someone tell you your mother, who you actually know gave birth to you, she's your mother, she is a female, was never really a female. Well, then where did I come from? How was I born? Who is my mom? That has to be my mom. I know it's my mom because, wait a minute, what do you mean she's not a female? You know what I mean? Like your mind would just go in all these different directions. It's like, what is happening, right? So we started hearing this, and it wasn't just once. It wasn't just this once, this one thing where we heard it and we dismissed it. It was multiple times. It was multiple times. And it just made no sense. And what we heard was that the CIA is going to be responsible for an upcoming terrorist attack on the United States on U.S. soil. And thousands would die. My mother's not my mother. What? What do you mean? It's almost like the CIA would be responsible for an attack on U.S. soil. What are you talking about? I can't even. There's no flow of mind power that could actually. Doesn't make any sense. You know? But it was said over and over again, and some of the recruits that were repeating it more than others were those recruits that were related to a family member who was already in the agency. So camp ended. The agency now had to make a static. Locals. Good. The agency now had to make a decision about all of us, whether or not they wanted us to extend an invitation to actually work and be employed. And that extension would come over the next year before the prior, well, the next summer after we completed. So it would have been the summer in 2002 by the summer of 2002, when I would have been extended an invitation to work at the agency. So we ended up splitting camp sometime in August, right before high school started back up. That would have been my senior year. Then 9/11 happened. Happened in September of 2001. I completed the second phase of training, recruitment, analysis in August of 2001. I graduated high school in June of 2002. As soon as I saw, you might be able to talk to some of my old high school classmates about this, but I was in class, obviously, when it happened. And all of our teachers ended up turning on the televisions in their classroom, and some classes even grouped into other classes to watch the towers as they burned and eventually fell. All of my classmates, I remember one classmate, his name was Jared, and a couple other smart classmates were watching, saying, well, this is definitely bin Laden. You know, bin Laden's the high-ranking terrorist, most wanted, FBI, whatever. Has his fingerprints all. I remember him saying that, and a couple other classmates agreeing with him and having a discussion about that. And I just sat there staring at that television, recollecting everything that I had heard in the months prior. And I knew immediately. I didn't know how, but I knew. It's like staring yourself in the mirror, you know it's you. It's like when I was looking at that television, I felt like I was staring into a mirror, and I knew it was me. I knew exactly what had happened. And I remember there was a point in class where everybody kept talking about terrorists and Muslims and Arabs, that the media already started to go there within hours. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but within hours it was already being blamed on not only bin Laden, but an actual country, which had zero to do with it. Zero. And I just saw my worst fears all coming together. This is the reason why. This is what I wanted to stop. This is the reason why I've always had an interest in this since a young kid. It was always my passion to be that secret agent, secret squirrel, like Will calls me, right? I always loved it. I always wanted to do it. And now I'm looking at people jumping from the buildings and splatting on the ground for fear of, they just couldn't handle the fear, so they jumped. And I just remember I felt so responsible. Not that I had anything to do with it, but how could this entity, who I credited with being the white hat entity for the world, not just for the country, but for the world, why? My dreams got crushed that day. Crushed. Everything I thought was good actually ended up being bad. I didn't know what was good. Is anything good? If we can't trust the CIA, the intelligence agency of our country, who do you trust? Everything that my entire world crashed that day. All of my hopes, all of my dreams, all of my ambitions, everything disintegrated. My baseball team, my high school baseball team, my junior year, we won league championship, district championship, and we made a run at states. We got a couple games into the state finals. And my senior year, we were better. We were better than our junior year. I came back, one of our pitchers came back with me, and we were loaded. And I could not concentrate in the entire season. I ended up winning player of the year, but my team struggled. We didn't even win a district championship, and it's my fault because I couldn't get my mind off of what had happened, and it consumed me. Cost my team a state championship. I didn't know what to do. Then I got invited to work at the CIA. I remember almost immediately, and I'm not saying that like in any broad way, I'm saying literally almost immediately after getting that invitation, 2 calls me and says he wants me to fly out to Connecticut. So I did. I flew. And met at his house. His house was always very mysterious to me. It seemed unlived in, but yet there were, toothbrushes and dishes and food in the refrigerator, drinks. No family photos, though. And I had noticed this before, but after 9/11 occurred, I started viewing things a lot differently than I had pre 9/11 because I was tricked. I mean, I was tricked. I thought what was good was actually bad, and I didn't know anymore if the person that I was talking to, who was my best friend in the world, was good or bad. I didn't even know why I was there. But he had got invited as well. And he wanted to talk to me about that. So that was the premise that I flew there on. He had a sister. Beautiful, beautiful girl. I remember us sitting on his sprawling property. It had to be on 50 acres, I don't know, but it was huge backyard just overlooking. It seems like you could view forever. And he had this big elaborate patio out the back overlooking this grand yard. And I remember us sitting out there that first day. We had to talk for 8 hours. He knew. He knew what I knew. And we discussed it, and he had reasons that he had to move on. He had to go and he had to work there. And I did not have those reasons. However, I did acknowledge and recognize his reasons. I knew that he had to do it and he didn't have a choice. I had a choice. He tried his hardest to get me to continue. And he told me that someday I would be a high-ranking member of someone's administration, the White House administration. And he felt that, the agency was not something that was my top spot. And he felt that he and I would go up the ranks together and we would work hard to change things from the inside. And because of the reasons that he had, the family reasons that he had, he needed to do this regardless of what I was to do. Flew back to Pennsylvania and we got static. Locals. Flew back to Pennsylvania and gathered my thoughts and took everything into consideration. And I could not do it. I could not work for an entity that purposely murdered people, United States citizens, innocent people. Not a foreign group, Taliban, ISIS, as they became known. Fathers of children. The ramifications of that day still extend into today. The cancers and they weren't what I thought, and it broke my heart. Broke my heart. It's all I ever wanted. I remember two came out and visited me in Pennsylvania that summer after I graduated. And he had already become, I believe it was the youngest CIA agent in the history of the agency to that point. Anyway, I don't think there's been any younger since. So he went on, and my life became different. I didn't know what direction to go. I had enrolled in colleges and was accepted in, multiple places, and I ended up going to school and I never even went to class. I couldn't get my mind, off entering the regular employment of society after I earned a degree, when one day I may just go into work and my building might collapse on my head because one of the United States major agencies decided so. Couldn't do it. And I didn't know what to do. So then I got a call that changed my life forever. It was from a different government entity that was not only aware of what had happened on September 11th, but were making moves to make those responsible for that day to be held to justice. And that was the National Security Agency. And suddenly, all of my prior dreams that had been crushed, all of my prior ambitions seemed like they were within reach again. So through a very elaborate network, I begun my time. I left college at that point and started working missions on a private contractor level, so to speak, which then evolved into something greater. And the hope that I came in with was so real and so high. And I just had such high hopes. Someone just asked why my mom doesn't know about any of this. Someone just asked over there, why doesn't your mom know? I don't know how you know my mom doesn't know. Oh, probably from the deposition, but she doesn't. She just didn't know about any of this. I told you it was me and one other person only. Finally, I had found the place that I wanted to be, and I knew this was going to be my career. And when I had joined, everything had been exactly how I had thought, working on various different algorithms, various different programs. And then Barack Obama became president. And everything changed. And some technology that I was responsible for was starting to be used against the United States. And all that was going through my head was, here we go again. Barack Obama weaponized the NSA. And Bush started doing it, but Bush was stopped. And everything that Obama said on the campaign trail was that he was going to put a permanent stop to what was happening. And the exact opposite happened. When he got in there, it accelerated so much that it was literally out of control. There were different huge companies involved, Verizon involved, Samsung. Obama weaponized projects that I was working on and my team was working on and used it against our country for the betterment of who? And that was the question. Who? Who keeps doing this? Who gave the order to the CIA for 9/11 in 2001? Why is Barack Obama using an intelligence agency against the American people? Because he can't be doing it for himself. What's the benefit there? What's the benefit of if Obama weaponizes the CIA or the NSA or the FBI or whatever, even the Department of Justice, any intelligence agency, whatever? Who's he answering to? I needed to do something. I couldn't. My world, again, for the second time, had just completely shattered. So I told everyone about it. And before I did, I consulted my best friend who had worked his way all the way up the ranks into various different positions throughout the years. And he got me out of there. So that it was undetectable. It's like I never was even there. No video, no logs, no names. Completely scrubbed off the face of the earth like I never even stepped foot anywhere. That's how high he had ranked in the years since. It was a complete scrub down of anything that had anything to do with me. Not only was it a scrub down and a massive erasal of events that had actually occurred, but somewhere along the line, a fall guy was also introduced. And his name was Edward Snowden. There was a person who actually existed by this name. I was told he was the same age as me, of a similar build, of a similar facial characteristic, so that if anyone within the agency were to try to find my face, he was close enough at the time anyway. I look a little different now than I did back then, but it's pretty close. So if anyone were to look into this and they would try to figure out actually what happened, they would interview those that had worked with my persona and ask them questions about, and you know, the name that they would give would be Mark, and when looking for that name in the log, didn't exist. And then, of course, there were agents that were planted to give disinformation to those that were, so they would give a different name. So the government focused on, Edward Snowden. And they made up stories after that. And it exists till today. So, two wanted me to get you got static? Locals? Two wanted me to get back involved at this point. And I just couldn't. I was out. I was done. I had no faith in the world anymore. I had no faith in humanity. I had no faith in government. I had no faith in structure. I had no faith in. I just wanted to live. I just wanted to live the rest of my life, and I wanted to be left alone. And I couldn't do it. I was out. I was done. I wanted to go pursue a family. I wanted to go have children. I wanted to be married. I wanted to get a mortgage. I wanted to have whatever. That's exactly what I did. Fast forward to 2017. I received a call. And that call is why I'm here today. Because I wouldn't be here today without that call. I got a call from two. And we had stayed in touch over the years, but it was sporadic, and he was very busy. He had risen all the way to the White House, just as he thought we would have if I had stayed. I went through some shit with, some false accusations, and that was right after pretty much everything had gone down. And by the way, the timeline that you guys know of for the Edward Snowden whistleblower thing is all false. That happened before it was actually released by the press. That was just part of the cover-up to create confusion and misinformation and disinformation. So again, we fast forward to sometime, early, mid 2017, and two calls. And like I said, by this time he's high. He's high up there, answering to just about nobody. And I'll never forget. Now, at this time, in 2017, I'm 2 years into my real estate empire. I had created a real estate company. I had 50 agents working for me. We were number 2 in just a short couple of years. We rose to number 2 in the entire area. By the way, it was called The Agency, just because I never wanted to forget. I never wanted to forget either of those agencies and what they stood for. But I was in the middle of it. So, I have a real estate company, I have a mortgage company, I have a title company, I have a real estate school, I have a wife, I have a 2-year-old, I have a new born at home. So the timing for this was incredibly awful. So I get the call from two, and I knew it was him. He didn't have to. There were no hellos. I answer. I'm like, hey. And I remember the exact words he said to me. He said, "We got them." And I paused. I literally said nothing for probably 60 seconds. Dead silence on that phone call. That's all he said was, "We got them." And I paused. And I knew in that 60 seconds I had ascertained exactly what he was talking about. And I responded with, only these words: "What do you need me to do?" He said, "We'll be in touch." They were in touch. Described a massive described a massive plan that was so extravagant and so many pieces and so many people, and so many things had to go right, but we had the right people to make sure that they went right. I met some of those people, and strategy was discussed, and different players had different jobs to do. And mine was to find the platform. Find the platform to leak government intel about corruption and about what was happening to our children and about what was happening to... This is my children calling me. I'm just going to grab this real quick and I'll be right back, okay? Test. Audio. Audio good. Test. I don't know what happened to the camera here. It was fine before I left. Static, of course. Okay. Locals? Okay. It's the largest audience I've ever had on a live stream. Of 31,264,000 right now. So that's cool. So those years before I got that call from two, they were difficult because I knew what Obama was doing. I knew there was a world government that ruled all, including the United States. And I knew that it had been happening for a very long time, way before I got involved with anything at all. hey guys, listen, you don't have to believe me. It's fine. I understand this is a hard story to tackle and to take on. Um, I'm not trying to make anybody believe me. There's a reason why I'm saying all this tonight, which we'll get to at the end. But it's not your job to convince other people that I'm lying. If you think I'm lying, you just don't watch me. That's all. That's how easy it is. And let other people decide for themselves. That's how it should go. So I don't think you have any. First of all, you have no ability, which you should have learned for the last 3 years now. But you have no right to try to influence somebody else's opinion about me or about anything. Because if you think about it, you acting that way is exactly what the mainstream media does today. They're trying to influence everyone's opinion about lies, right? So if you're on our side and you just don't like me because you think I'm a liar, that's fine. I get that. But you acting the way that you are, trying to convince all of these other people who may or may not believe me, let's say that they do, right? And let's say I'm successful in doing what I've been doing because that they do like me, right? And they do believe me and they do trust me. You have no right to try to convince them that their thoughts are wrong. You don't think for them. That's what the mainstream media does. They put an agenda on their programming and they try to think for everybody else. That is what you're doing by going over here and saying, liar, 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 liar. First of all, no one gives a shit what you say. Second of all, you're doing what the other side does. So if you actually are the other side, well, we know what you're doing. If you're not, and you claim to be MAGA and you claim to be Trump supporter and Q follower and whatever, you are acting how the other side acts. Isn't that ironic to you? And I got news for you. You sitting over there, you have no idea if I'm telling the truth or not. Me not telling the truth and being a liar like you constantly keep saying, you know that's true, just like you know it's not true. You have no evidence to support anything like that at all. Nothing. And you will never have anything because something like that doesn't exist. So I just wanted to say that. I know I'm not, I'm not getting involved too much over here, but regardless, let me get back into it. My life for those years prior to getting the call from two, the We Got Him call, was just so confusing because I knew something existed and something ruled over all of us, and none of us were aware of it, except a very, very small group of people. And those people couldn't do anything about it, because then if you saw those that are in highest office, from the Supreme Court to the presidency to congressional members, even CEOs of large corporations, there was no way out of this. The world had been taken over, and there was nothing anyone could do. And that's how my years went leading up to that call. And it was scary to me. I considered not having children. In fact, I didn't have children until I was 32, 33 years old. And then I get the call, and the words are, "We got him." And I knew. I was asked to do several things. I was asked to find the platform, secure the platform, use my expertise that I had built in the past to create an undetectable, and when I say undetectable, not undetectable for, a couple brief little hacking expeditions, undetectable forever. That's a tall task. So in other words, this platform, which would be some sort of posting platform, some sort of communication device, was going to be used by the Q team to communicate with the general public. And the concept was that other social media outlets, such as the most popular obviously being Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, were already controlled by this group that we were trying to take down, by the opposition. So going to them and trying to drum up a support campaign for the truth wasn't going to work, because we would just be deplatformed. So we needed to find I in particular needed to find something that was not going to follow those same rules. And that's when I found 4chan. 4chan was the perfect platform. Security wise, it was very easy to encrypt. And when I say encrypt, we're talking about, we have to disguise who's posting from everyone in the world, the greatest hacking groups in the world. We can never be found. Who's making these posts can never be found. Where they're logging in from needs to be untraceable forever. Not just for while the post exists, but forever. That's what I did. Took several months. That call from 2 was probably, I never referred to him as 2 until tonight. I think you guys know that. I still refer to him as 2, to his face, just to be like, I know what your position is, but you were 2. So that's just a little thing. But anyway, took several months. That call from 2 was probably towards the beginning of maybe the first part of 2017. Took me months to not only locate but build software, algorithm, and an entirely untraceable, very intricate network. And that's what I did. I had a little bit of help from some people that and then the post began. I can tell you this: there's not one person that's Q. Okay, I think that's kind of public knowledge by now. I think you could see by some of the ways that certain Q drops are written that they're being written by different people. It's not the same posting style. It's not the same. A lot of it is different. Some of them are even signed Q plus, right? So that's just the team telling you that this is a different poster, and you'll see Q plus plus plus. I don't know if you know who that might have been, but I had posted. I know who the traders are within that group. And when I say that group, I'm talking about Anons. I know who they were on that platform, their trip codes. And I know I could trace that to their Twitter accounts. I can now trace that to their Telegram accounts. And they are the same people who speak negatively about me. But if I started speaking negatively about them, that would not be good for them. But I don't. What's common for people like that, Static? Locals? What's common for people like that have betrayed our group is much worse than me giving a bad report on social media. So But there was a group that posted, and those posts, I mean, you could go back through all the thousands of posts that were posted by Q, and you know, when Q says you have it all, we really do have it all. We were literally told everything that was going to happen years before it happened. Now, I want to tell you a little something else. Everything that has happened starting in 2017 up until today, December 13th, 2023, everything that you saw happen publicly from Trump's inauguration to impeachment hoax, all of the shit that happened, that had already happened. I know this is hard to comprehend, but you have to understand the world that we're living in. None of it happened in the time frame that you think it happened. If you were to go to Google or Wikipedia right now and say, when did I'm trying to think of an example. When was Donald Trump impeached for the second time? You're going to get a date, and you're going to get a set of circumstances. Except that impeachment actually never happened. It happened publicly, and we know that it happened because we saw it happen, right? That was not the case. They attempted many things starting in 2017 after Trump was inaugurated to do to Donald Trump. And they failed at all of them because by 2017, we were already in control. The military in our country has already rescued this country. What we've been living through for the last 6 years is nothing more. And, you know, we say it and it's so cliche and people get so sick of the term, but it's just a movie. All of these events that are playing out and that have been playing out in front of you for 6 years are nothing but a very well-written, scripted transaction. And they're being fed to you through the mainstream media, which we control, to make it seem like things are against us and that the cabal has power and that we are powerless and that Trump is impeached and then indicted and then arrested and then put through trial. None of that is true. Let me tell you what is true. That smokescreen that's been happening for 6 years now, what's actually happening is the destruction of evil. And the only way that I could describe it is by calling it godlike. We are being shielded purposely. We are being shielded and we are being blocked from the actual events that are occurring by this smoke screen. And what is the smoke screen? Joe Biden's, he's dead. He died. Hillary Clinton, dead, died. Okay? Yet you see these people, right? You see actors, body doubles, so to speak, that are in their place. So we're looking over here and we're thinking, oh, this is so hard. Oh, this and that. Oh, this is bad and this is bad and this is bad and this is bad. Let me tell you something. We set that up. We did. Our side. We did that. Do you know why? Because if this operation was going to work and the destruction of the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Obamas and the Clintons and everybody that came before that, the Bushes that had a hand in the destruction of our humanity, the destruction of our race. If we were going to get them, if we were going to take them down for good, it can't be happening in real time. It has to happen in such a secret manner that it was almost like it wasn't happening. This plan had been set up since 2012. Why 2012? Because we got Obama doing something back then. You're going to learn about that really soon. It's not going to be tonight from me, but you're going to learn about it. But Obama did something in 12 that caused the military to finally say, enough. This is treason committed by the highest office. We're going in. Obama was almost extracted from office. Don't know if you guys knew that. In 2012, after his win over Romney. Romney knows all about this. That's why he always appears that he's lying, because he is. Starting in 2012, the premise for this takedown had begun. I would equate it to a chessboard setting up your pieces, right? So you put your row of pawns, you got your rooks, your bishops, your knights, king and queen, right? Your places are set. Your opponent already had theirs set for years, but you finally just put your places, on the board, right? Except the difference with this chess game is that we get to make 10 moves before the opponent does. And that's what we did. We made 10 moves before the opponent did. So now the opponent comes onto a board where we've already moved 10 of our pieces. That is still going to be a battle before you get to the ultimate victory, but it's a battle that the other side can't win. So the battle begun upon Trump's inauguration in 2017, in January of 2017. Q started posting in October of 2017. The Q campaign, so to speak, was to educate. Educate you. To get people like you that knew something was wrong but couldn't quite put their finger on it, right? You knew something was up. The world can't be this way. Like, what is happening here? This is not, Christian-like. This is not there's no God in the world anymore. So what is going on? Right? You knew it. You knew it. Many of you knew it for decades. But you couldn't quite get there. Right? You would read books like the Bilderberg Group book. You would read the books. You would have these hunches. But you just couldn't quite get it. Right? That's what Q was for. It was to show you that you're not alone in your thinking. And why do you think Q got into the mainstream media? Do you think the mainstream media mentioning Q was a deterrent for people? You think the mainstream media mentioned Q because they didn't want you to know about Q? If they didn't want you to know about Q, wouldn't they just not mention it? Why would they have to go to such extremes to say, oh, QAnon, don't listen to QAnon, whatever you do, don't listen to QAnon. Listen, we're at the point where people know something's going on, and they're going to listen to anything because they're just not sure anymore. And people have now decided that they're going to decide for themselves. You're not going to tell people what they can and can't listen to anymore, right? Why do you think the media started mentioning Q that way? Because they wanted people to look it up. They wanted people to start reading that shit. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. Exactly. And the plan worked on that portion. The plan worked perfectly. Millions and millions, tens, hundreds of millions of people worldwide not only know about Q, but because of Q, people know the evil that has corrupted the world. We know about sex trafficking. We know about human trafficking. We know about child trafficking, child sex trafficking. We know about corruption in government, not only within the United States, which is obvious, but around the world. We know about the Vatican. We know about Israel. We know about the gold. We know about Nasera. We know about the banks. We know about the central banks. None of us knew this before. That has all happened since 2017. And while you were getting educated, while you were catching up on everything, while you were listening to people like me, while you were listening to other truthers out there, while you were getting bits and pieces of information all over the place, you know why you're getting those bits and pieces of information? Because Q told you to. Q told you to look there. Now I'm going to drop a big bomb on your head, and I don't know if you're going to realize this, but you're welcome to go look at the statistics. Okay? COVID. COVID was rolled out in late 2019, early 2020. Okay? I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but again, go look it up if it's a statistic that's so unbelievable that you just can't comprehend it. COVID was rolled out in 2020. The number of cases diagnosed for COVID-19 are available. Go look them up. Look at the number of cases of the flu, influenza. You're going to notice something. Now look at the numbers in 21. Throughout that whole few year period of COVID, mask, the flu was eradicated. There were almost 0 cases of the flu. And the number of cases of COVID mirrored what the number of cases of the flu for the previous 5 or 10 years were. So if there were 500,000 cases of the flu in, let's say, 2017, right? The flu, static. Are we good there? Okay. The number of cases of COVID were the same as previous years of the flu, and the flu went down to 0. So all that they did was they said flu cases were COVID. That's all they did. As if that's not bad enough. Go back and look at the number of deaths, total deaths, associated with all illnesses in, let's say, 2010 and forward, 2010 to 2020. And then of this big global pandemic, and I'm not just talking about United States, I'm talking about worldwide. Look at the number of deaths in that 10-year period, 2010 to 2020, right? And then look at the deaths in the COVID spike years. What do you notice? It didn't go up. No one died of COVID. Not a single person died of COVID. And you know why? At this point, sitting here, not knowing the full scope of it, but you could ascertain that COVID wasn't even real. How do you know you have COVID? Take a test, right? Who gives you the test? Your hospital or your doctor, right? Where'd they get it from? Who made the test? I sit here as a perfectly healthy 40-year-old man. If I were to take a test for AIDS right now, I don't have AIDS. I can tell you I don't have AIDS, okay? But if I were to take a test for AIDS and somebody gave me that test and I tested positive, I would think that I had AIDS, right? Because the test said so. So whoever's giving me the test is purposely trying to make the test positive, right? They want me to think I have something that I don't have. That's what COVID was. Remdesivir, very dangerous. Very dangerous. It was one of those last pawn pieces, or last chess pieces, I should say, being moved on the board from the deep state. Was there a bad vaccine at some point? Probably. But as far as COVID goes, I don't think COVID actually existed. I don't think it ever even touched humanity at all. All this talk about it, Fauci and Wuhan, and it's all just part of the... Listen, that really took up a lot of your attention, didn't it? How many times did you put a mask on your face? How many times did you refuse to wear a mask? How many times did you have a conversation about masks with somebody else, whether it was a store owner, they wouldn't let you in if you didn't wear it, whether it was your family over how many, you are so focused on the masks and the COVID and the and meanwhile, the deep state and the cabal is being eradicated from the world. So they did a really good job getting you to look over here, huh? Remember all my lives that talked about false flags? What'd you think I was referring to? That was all nothing but one big, giant look over there while we do this, because we don't want anybody to know that this is happening. You know what the Rothschild family is worth? Well, was worth $600 trillion. Trillion. That's more than half the world's currency. How do you beat somebody like that? Do you beat them by fighting them publicly and letting everybody know that you do it? No, you don't. You do it covertly, and that's exactly what happened. There were no deaths from COVID. There probably was never any COVID. Just look at the number. All you got to do is look at the numbers to know that. Listen, guys. Everybody thinks that there's this big miracle that's needed. There's a huge, process that has to take place. There's, where is the EBS and where is it? Listen, when the EBS comes, that is a time for an entire consciousness shift of humanity. The EBS isn't going to be telling you about the crimes that such and such and such committed. It's going to be telling you about all of the things that happened to allow us to get here. What did we as citizens of the world allow to happen to get humanity in this place? And how close were we pushed to the brink of being lost forever? You guys lost relatives to COVID? So did I. I think I lost two. I think I lost my grandfather. I think I lost my grandmother. But it wasn't to COVID. They used a COVID test to get those people that you lost into the hospital and then stick them in the arm with poison. And again, this isn't something that we should look at and be like, oh, well, if they're able to do that, then, they still got us. No, it's just, while the eradication of the cabal and the deep state was going on for the last 6 years, there are different areas that still had a little bit of power and a little bit of influence. And one of those areas was the World Health Organization and big time companies that have risen. You have no idea how big Pfizer actually is. You have no idea how big Moderna actually is in the power that they yield over hospitals worldwide. If they wanted to get a drug into hospitals, they're going to do it. And the White Hats could only go so far by stopping it. They stopped the vaccine, but what they didn't stop was remdesivir. And anybody that got a dose of that likely died. Listen, I'm not here to brag. I'm not. I'm here to try to change lives. I've been trying to do that. I've been wanting to do that since I was a little kid. And twice my hopes and my dreams were shattered. And then in 2017, we got a second chance. And I've been doing my best every single day to not only make things right in this world, but leave this world a better place for my kids and their kids after that than it was for me growing up. That's why I'm here. There are certain pieces that still have to fall into place before all of this happens. But I could tell you, we are closer to the EBS today than we've ever been. We are closer to Trump coming back into office than we've ever been. The indictments against Trump are about to be thrown out because he is not prosecutable. Because if they rule him to be prosecutable and he does not have presidential immunity, and this is going to be their reasoning why they don't rule that way. And I'm talking about SCOTUS, of course. If you didn't know, Jack Smith went to the Supreme Court and said, you guys got to rule on this, hurry up, otherwise I can't proceed. If he has immunity, I can't charge him. If they say Trump doesn't have immunity, what happens to previous presidents, right? That's going to be their reasoning. So they're going to rule Trump has immunity. Those cases get tossed. Then it's time for Trump to come back. And this whole election shit to 2024, So we have never been more on the precipice than we were now. I know I've said that before. I know there's going to be memes floating around with Phil saying it 4 different times. But this time, it's true. It's already been done. There's not, and you know, the catchphrase that we came up with was nothing can stop what is coming, right? It came, how many times have you heard or seen that before? It's true. And the reason why you can't stop it is because it already happened. You can't change something that's already happened. It happened regardless. It's there. It happened. Period. And now it's just the curtain call. It's just the curtain call. And I'm telling you, and I've been telling you for 3 years, and I want to say it again, and I want you to remember it. And I know cognitive dissonance is going to get in the way of you rationalizing what I'm about to say. Don't let it. Because this is the truth. What I'm about to say is so true, more truer than any other truths that have ever been told in this world. You are living through the greatest time in human history. You are alive to witness this while it all was going down. In fact, you were a soldier on the front line of the greatest time in human history. You were a soldier and you fought. And how did you fight? You fought with your voice. You fought with your postings on social media. You fought with your viewership. You helped share shows not only like mine, but others. And you helped red pill how many people? Red pilling is the sign of a soldier. Static, of course, why not? Logos. Red pilling is the sign of, I'm sorry, I should say it this way. Attempting to red pill is the sign that you are a soldier in this war. Red pilling somebody is like getting a kill. It's like you just killed one of your opponents. I'm not saying realistically, obviously, if you red pill somebody, you're not killing them. But it's equating a soldier's battle. And that's what each and every one of you have been trying to do. And even if you haven't done it, it's okay. You're still part of the battle, and we're going to need you towards the end. We're going to need you. Because this is coming to a close. No one should tell you any different. I don't give a shit what other truthers are saying. I don't care what their names are. I don't care what level of government they're on, because I know these things to be factual because I helped start it. So no one's going to tell me what's actually happening because this one said that and this one says he's wrong and that one says he's wrong. That's all noise to me. It's literally in one ear out the other because I have a direct line to the people who are in charge. And if you don't like that, leave. If you don't believe me, I don't give a shit. It's true. We've won. We've won for a while now, and all that's left is the crying for them and the celebration for us. And boy, is that going to be a celebration for the ages. You have no idea the level of celebration that's going to be. that'll do it for tonight. My sponsors for tonight are goldquiz.com. Goldquiz.com will help you roll over your 401k or your IRA into precious metals. Get it the hell out of that stock market. I'm telling you right now, get it out of the stock market and back it with precious metals. The link to Gold Quiz is right down below in the description. My other sponsor for tonight is TacRite. TacRite has those mini chainsaws. I just ordered a couple more actually for myself. Great Christmas gifts, especially if you have somebody that has trees in their yard or bushes in their yard. These things are so easy to handle. It's better than those big bulky chainsaws, the regular size chainsaws that you need. The mini ones are amazing. Good price, back in stock for a limited time. Link down below in the description. Thank you guys for tuning in. I told you tonight was going to be big. We broke a record with our audience, and I love you guys. I'm going to have another live this week, probably tomorrow, actually. If not tomorrow, then Friday, but most likely tomorrow. So we're going to do a Q&A tomorrow. That'll be my next live. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in.